Bonjour mes élèves. Bonjour mes élèves, c'est Madame Brown et aujourd'hui on va parler du verbe être. This is Madame Brown and today we're going to talk about the verb être, which means to be in French. We're going to look at how to conjugate this verb and how it works with adjectives and adjective agreement. First of all, the verb être means to be. It is a verb of being. It states how things are. So for example, in English, you might say, I am, you are, he is. First, let's talk about subject pronouns. Firstly, pronouns replace proper nouns. So rather than saying John is French, I could say he is French. The pronoun he replaces the name John. What are some other pronouns that you know in English? Now, what is a subject pronoun? The subject in a sentence is the person or thing doing the action, which is the verb. So in our sentence, John is French, the subject is John. A subject pronoun replaces the proper name of the subject with a pronoun, he. He is French. Now, what are some subject pronouns that you know? We have three categories of subject pronouns: first person, second person, and third person. First person is the speaker's point of view. I am going to the beach. I'm going to see my friends. Second person, the speaker tells you about what you're doing, which is very rare in a book. But it would be, you are going to the beach. You are going to see your friends. And then in third person, the speaker tells you what someone else is doing. He is going to the beach. She is going to see her friends. One is going to the beach today, which is rarely used in English anymore, but we still teach it in French because the French will often use that pronoun to say, we are going to the beach. Now, what if there's more than one subject? Well, these are our singular subject pronouns, I, you, he, and she. We have plural subject pronouns. The first one in English is we, right? If there's more than one of I, we are going to the beach. Second person, if there's more than one of you, you could say y'all if you're in Texas, or you say you as a group. Third person, plural, if there's more than one he or she, it is they. Now in French, our subject pronouns are going to be je for I, tu for you, il for he, elle for she, on for one. Nous for we, vous for you or y'all, il and elle for they. Okay? Now, vous is rather unique. See, we have vous can be second person plural, or it can be second person singular formal. So if I was speaking to a gentleman or a woman, someone who is older than me or someone who I don't know, then I would use vous. However, if I'm speaking to my friends or someone close to my age, I would use tu. Also notice with il and elle, it sounds the same as the plural form, il and elle. Even though there's an S there, the S is not pronounced. And if our group is mixed gendered, so men and women, we default to the masculine form il, I-L-S. Okay. Also notice that there with on is used to say we in a familiar context, whereas nous is usually used in more formal contexts nowadays. Now, let's conjugate the verb être, to be. Depending on the subject pronoun, the verb will change form. Je suis, for I am. Tu es, you are, in a familiar context. Il est, he is. Elle est, she is. On est, for we are. Nous sommes, for we are, in a more formal context. Vous êtes, for you are, in a formal context, or y'all as a group, you are. ils sont for they are as a male masculine group or a mixed gendered group, or we say elles sont for they are if they are a strictly feminine group. So let's go over those again. Je suis, tu es, il est, elle est, on est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont, elles sont. Careful with your pronunciation. So notice we don't say the final consonants on these. So let's hear them again. Je suis, tu es, il est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont, elles sont. Now we do say the S on vous because it's followed by a vowel. Now let's hear it as in practice, plus some adjective agreement. So for example, spelling and pronunciation of nationalities changes depending on the gender of the person we're speaking of. So for a guy, we could say, Je suis américain. I'm American. We make a liaison between suis and américain. So the S gets pronounced because it's followed by a vowel. Je suis américain. Américain has a nasal sound, so the N is pronounced subtly. If we have a girl, we add an E at the end of américain. So we would say, Je suis américaine. The E is added to adjectives that describe feminine nouns, usually. Here we have a boy, you are Chinese, tu es chinois. We don't say the S on chinois. If we have a girl or a woman, we add an E to chinois, so it becomes tu es chinoise, and now we can pronounce the S. Okay. Looking at these examples, we have a group of boys and a group of girls. If we just want to say he is Australian, we could say il est australien. And there is a subtle pronunciation of the T because it's followed by a vowel. So normally we say il est, but because it's followed by a vowel, we say il est australien. And we get that nasal sound on the N again. If we're speaking of a girl, she is Australian. When a word ends with en, we don't just add an E, we add an extra N and an E. So, elle est australienne. Elle est australienne. She is Australian. So some other adjectives that do this might be parisien becomes parisienne, canadien becomes canadienne. Now, if we just want to say they are Australian, referring to just the boys, we would say ils sont australiens. So we can say that T again, because normally it's just ils sont. We don't say the T, but because it's followed by a vowel, we can say that T. We don't say the final S on il. And we don't really say the N. It has a nasal sound. And that S doesn't get pronounced either. Now, if we're just speaking about the girls and we want to say they are Australian, we would say elles sont australiennes. We can make that T sound between sont and australienne. We don't pronounce the S on elle, and we don't pronounce the S at the end. Now, if we want to say all of us are Australian, boys and girls, we are Australian, we could say nous sommes australiens. If we want to say they are Australian, there we go, we don't pronounce those final S's, nous sommes australiens. I can't really explain why we don't pronounce the S at the end of some when it's followed by a vowel, but generally speaking, you don't need to say the S. Now, if we want to say they are all Australian, ils sont tous australiens. They are all Australian. So we don't say the S on il, we don't say the T on sont, we don't say the N on australien, we don't say that final S. A mixed gendered group will default to the masculine form. So notice we didn't say australienne, we said australien. All right, pratiquer. Time to practice conjugations. I am happy. So first of all, our subject pronoun for I is je. The form of the verb être that goes with je is suis. Je suis. Je suis contente. If it was a masculine subject, we could say je suis content. It doesn't have the E at the end. Okay. He is athletic. Our subject pronoun for he is il. The form of the verb être that goes with il is est. Il est. Il est sportif. If we were speaking of a girl, we could say elle est sportive. The ending of sportif changes to a VE. Remember, we don't say the T or the S on est. You are kind. The subject pronoun in a familiar context, so someone you know, someone who is your age or younger than you, is tu. The form of the verb être that goes with tu is est. Es. Tu es gentille. If we were speaking to a boy, we would say tu es gentil. So we don't pronounce the S on E. We don't pronounce the L on gentil. But here, where we have a double L followed by an E, it makes a Y sound. Tu es gentille. They are English. First, our subject pronoun. For a mixed group of people, feminine and masculine, we would use the pronoun il. Remember, we don't pronounce the S on il. The form of the verb être that we use is sont. Ils sont. Ils sont anglais. If it was only a group of women, we could say elles sont anglaises. Remember, we don't pronounce the S on il or elle. We don't pronounce the final S on anglais. We don't pronounce that final S at the end of anglaise. It makes a Z sound because the S is followed by an E. And here, because sont is followed by a vowel, we can say that T. Ils sont anglais. Elles sont anglaises. You are smart. Let's use the formal pronoun for you, which is vous. The form of the verb être that goes with vous is et. We don't pronounce the S. When they're combined side by side, we can say the S on vous, so it comes out as vous êtes. Vous êtes intelligent. You are intelligent. If we were speaking to a woman, we could say vous êtes intelligente. We put an E at the end of intelligent. So we don't pronounce the S on vous êtes. We don't pronounce the E at the end of intelligent. So vous êtes intelligente. We are Chinese. Let's think of the we as the informal pronoun. The informal pronoun for we is on. The form of the verb être that goes with on is est. On est chinois. We are Chinese. We can pronounce the N on because it's followed by a vowel, but we don't pronounce the T or the S on est, and we don't pronounce the S on chinois. However, if we were speaking about some girls, we could say on est chinoise and put an E at the end. Y'all are funny. It's a group of children, so if I was speaking to just one of them, I could use tu, but because I'm speaking to a group of them, the pronoun I should use is vous. So the form of être that goes with vous is et. Vous êtes. Vous êtes amusant. Vous êtes amusante if it was a group of girls. We put the E at the end of amusant. Both forms have an S at the end because it's plural, but we still don't pronounce the final S, right? Vous êtes amusant, vous êtes amusante. They are French. Our subject pronoun for a group of women would be elles, they. The form of être that goes with elles is sont. Elles sont françaises. We add an E because they're feminine, we add an S because it's plural. If it was a group of men, we would say ils sont français. We don't need to add an extra S to the adjective français because it already ends with an S. Elles sont françaises, ils sont français. Merci et bonne journée.